Welcome to the HR on the Offensive podcast, a weekly podcast by Lace Partners, a fundamentally different HR and payroll consultancy. Each week, we tackle some of the most interesting topics facing senior HR professionals. So whether that's from employee value proposition, performance management, people strategy, or even payroll, we cover it all. So join us for the next 30 minutes. And if you like what you hear, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Now, on with the show. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to the latest HR on the Offensive podcast. It's me, Chris Howard from Lace Partners, joining you as always as we release our weekly edition of the HR on the Offensive podcast. But this week, once again, it's a payroll. So maybe I should be changing this to payroll on the Offensive podcast. And I love to have a partner in crime when I'm doing these podcasts. I've got a co-host today, and what we're going to do is we're going to get a take on our recent white paper that we produced, but we're going to get an external take on it. So for those of you that don't know, the white paper is called Optimal Payroll Starts with the Foundations. You can get access to it on the Lace Partners website. If you go to lacepartners.com, you can go onto the payroll page, or you can go onto our insights section and have a little look. But we've had Chris Kirby and we've had Nick from our team who have come on to have a little talk about it. We have produced a couple of blogs on different takes as to why we've chosen these different foundations. And what we wanted to do is get another expert opinion, and that expert that we've got today I will introduce in a second, but before that I'll do my co-host first. It's Julie Choudhury, who's making her debut on the HR/payroll on the Offensive podcast. Julie, you all right?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Chris. Delighted to be here and delighted to do my first one with you.
We were just talking before we went live. We had you on the LinkedIn live that we did, but this is your podcast debut.
And I'm a big fan of podcasts, so this kind of fits in nicely with the personal and professional things that I like to do. Yeah.
Love it. Really loving it. And we've got to get our guest in. It's the fabulous Melanie Pizzey, who is the founder of the Global Payroll Alliance. Mel, how you doing? You all right?
Yeah, no, it's all good. Looking forward to the summer. But as always, there's just so much going on in the payroll industry at the moment. So thank you for inviting me on your podcast today. And I'm also a fan, Julie, of podcasts. Normally crime, but obviously always happy to talk about payroll.
Yeah, we're going to do that today. We're going to get into the meat and drink of the white paper that we produced, just to get your take on some of the pillars and anything that you're seeing with the payroll companies that you work or that are members of your association, just to see, are they doing some bits better than others? Before we do that, though, let's do a quick intro for yourself. So tell anybody who may not know who you are, although lots of people in the payroll industry obviously will know you. Just give us a little bit on your background, and then I'm going to hit you and Julie with our fundamentally different question before we talk about the white paper.
So, as I said, my name is Melanie Pizzey. I've been working in the payroll industry for 30 years now, and the GPA has been going for about 11 years now. So it's just gone so quickly. And we have members based all around the globe. Some countries I've never heard of before, and I have to Google, which is quite exciting for me. And yeah, so we help payroll people from all around the world and help them process global payroll. So whether that's networking, membership, training, etc. So we're all things payroll.
Nice. We're going to bookend, obviously, where people can find out. But do you want to just tell people where they can access the website, just so that they can have a little look themselves?
So nice and easy, gpa.net.
You won't forget that one. That's a nice and easy one. Let's do our fundamentally different question before we get into the detail. And because you're the guest, I'm going to hit Julie with it first so that you've got some time to prepare. I have just read an article. If those of you are listening to this for the first time, we do a fundamentally different question, which is completely random and not related to anything to do with payroll or HR. It's our little bit of fun to test our guests and also co-hosts. And so Julie is going to go first. And Julie, I've just read an article about a bank in Virginia celebrating 125 years in existence by rather randomly presenting to the crowd the largest ever crab cake at a baseball game. 136 kilos of crab cake. I do not know what it tasted like. I did not get that far into the article or the video that I watched. But my question to you, Julie, just to kick us off, if you could have on your next big milestone, and you don't have to tell anybody what that milestone birthday is, but if you could have anything that is the world's largest something produced, given to you, what would it be?
Loads of pressure going first, isn't there? So my next milestone being my 21st, obviously,
Yeah.
and a bit. I've not had much time to think about this, but I think I'd ask for the world's largest bag of money and distribute it accordingly, right? So I take a little bit for myself, but I think there's lots of other people in the world that need it a bit more than me. So I think that's what I'd use it for, yeah.
That's the classic payroll person answer, isn't it? You've really gone on brand there, Julie.
Yeah.
And there's me thinking, oh, what can I go for? And I went for, I'd have the world's largest bag of steak McCoy crisps. Other brands of crisps are available, of course, but they're my favourite. Mel, what are you going for?
I've just had my big milestone birthday a few weeks ago, so I've got quite a long way to wait for my next one, and I hope I have teeth then, because I'm going to be really old. But I keep thinking of chocolate, so I don't know. I just keep, Julie, your answer is lovely, and then I'm selfishly thinking of maybe the biggest bar of whole nut.
Oh,
Do you not think you'd get sick of the chocolate and the crisps, right? Like after a certain...
Yeah, but I can't think of anything. I mean, like the other things I like clothes, and like, but then that's really like terrible saying the biggest wardrobe in the world, because that's really that's Imelda Marcos, isn't it? There and through. So I thought maybe just the chocolate might be I could share it out with all the kids in the area.
Do you know? Do you know what? Just working in marketing and being the person that I am, my wife says I'm sometimes a bit of a showy person. So I just get lots of pictures of me standing next to the world's biggest bag of crisps and being like, yeah, mostly like the crisps would probably have gone off. But yeah, maybe we should avoid going down into this rabbit hole even further and talk a little bit about the white paper that we've got. So I'm going to ask Julie if you can just kick us off, if that's all right. And then we're going to get Mel's take on some of the pillars. So for those of you who aren't aware or haven't downloaded our white paper, we produced a white paper earlier this year in 2025. And what it did is it outlined what we think are 7 key kind of pillars, if you like, foundational pillars that represent the most optimal way in which you can deliver a world-class leading payroll function. So I'll read the 7 pillars out, but then I'm going to get Julie just to give us a minute or two just to explain what we talk about in each of those different sections. And then Mel, once Julie's done that, we'll get your take. And the thing I'm interested to find out, which we can go through afterwards, and I'll ask you, Julie and I'll ask you some questions, is around what you're seeing in the market, and are there any particular pillars that stand out for you as businesses, payroll teams are doing this well from what I see, or they're doing that, they need improvement on that. But Julie, just to kick us off, so we've got operating model, we've got technology, we've got skills, we've got data and reporting, we've got process, we've got adaptability and scalability, and then the final one is training and mindset. Those are our 7. So can you just give us maybe a sentence or two or a minute or two on each of those, and what are we talking about there?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah, so 7 key pillars, and I think they're equally as important as each other. So if you start with operating model, having clear roles and responsibilities in place is key to running a solid payroll function. It keeps everyone accountable, it cuts down on risk, and it helps the whole process run smoother across the board, really. And then moving on to technology, the right tech and the partner can take your payroll to the next level. It cuts out manual work, it improves accuracy, and obviously security is paramount, and it keeps you ready for whatever changes are coming next. And then we need to think about skills and capabilities. Payroll still needs technical know-how. So I guess these days it's just as important to have the people skills, the adaptability, and the drive to keep improving and to support the wider business. Data, as always, is super important as well, and reporting. So more than ever, payroll runs on solid, accurate data with the right reporting and governance in place. You get the insights you need to make smarter decisions as a business. And then I guess if we look at processes and optimization, if you automate and standardize payroll, you're boosting efficiency, you're cutting down on errors, and you stay on top of performance so everything runs smoothly and stays in check. And then adaptability and scalability. With businesses and laws like changing all the time, payroll still needs to be flexible and scalable so that it can keep up and support growth without missing anything along the way. And then finally, thinking about training and mindset. Running payroll well matters, but building a culture of learning and innovation is just as important to staying sharp and ready for whatever's next.
Yeah, brilliant. So, Mel, just wanted to get your initial take on that. Julie made a really good point there, which was the reason we put them as pillars is equally they're all as important. But is there anything else, just from your initial view of those, that you think this is something that payroll teams really need to zone in on?
I don't know whether or not this is included in some of your pillars, so Julie, tell me if it is. But I always think compliance, and I think that's a really strong pillar. When we've asked people previously, what keeps you awake at night, and it is always compliance. And then that comes down to your provider, data, the technology. Are they supporting you in that compliance? And then does it come back to the training and mindset? So compliance is included in, I think, a lot of your pillars, but I wonder whether or not that should be something. And the thing is as well, like, we are living in a different world. It changes every single day, doesn't it? And that also includes compliance. And compliance, if you're dealing with global payroll or multiple countries or even just one country at the moment, I think it's pretty hard to keep on top of that.
I think it's compliance and legislation, right? They're just all as important as each other. So thinking about payroll teams and the ones that I guess that you work with, Mel, are they focusing on any particular pillar?
From our side, we see a lot of them on the training and the mindset, because that's what we do help payroll teams with. But I think a lot of people are looking at technology at the moment, and also because the buzzword at the moment is AI, I do think there is AI fatigue, and we're on a positive about AI, and I do feel like we're on a slight dip on AI, but people still need to understand how it will affect the payroll industry and the payroll team. And so technology, I would say, and then also we try and encourage people to look at the data as well. We're trying to get payroll into the C-suite, and I think data is the king or queen of that to help elevate the payroll industry, because they have the best data really in any company.
Can I ask you about that AI piece? Because from the businesses that you're speaking to, what's the general vibe around the interaction or the way in which payroll is going to evolve with AI? What are people saying to you? Is it just, oh, we don't really know we're interacting with it. It's being embedded within some of our systems, but we're not using it. I guess this goes back to some of these bleed into each other, don't they? Because with AI, you're looking at what are the skills and capabilities that we need to interact with AI, or how do we get the right people who have this mindset? Like, I've just read an article recently talking about how a large percentage of the British public are just not really, they're very risk averse when it comes to their usage and adoption of AI. So does that reflect the same within the payroll industry from payroll leaders that you're speaking to, Mel?
So I would say 9 months ago, when we had our symposiums, or even a year ago, if I asked everyone to put their hands up and just say, how do you feel about AI? Do you feel nervous? And I would say the majority of the room would put their hands up. And this is in the UK. Now, when we ask the question, I would say there's more people more positive about AI and how they feel about it. In different countries, oh my God, it's brilliant. You get different energy from different payroll people in different countries about how they feel about AI. And I would say majority of people are positive, but they're still nervous. So they still think that they're going to lose their job because of AI. You do need that human element, even if you are using AI. I think some of the payroll leaders are a bit, as I said, got AI fatigue because they've been promised certain things that the payroll provider will be able to do. So you go to customer meetings and it's, oh, this is what's coming. And then you go to another meeting and it's still coming. So I think it's a positive, nervous, and let's see what happens. And are we using it yet? Are we not? So I think I don't know if I'm making it more confusing, but I do think there's a bit of confusion around the whole topic. But I think generally payroll leaders feel like they have to understand AI. That's the message, really. You need to understand it. You need to understand how it will be in the payroll team and department and system.
Mel, just sticking on the AI topic for a minute, because obviously you said it's super, super hot at the moment. Are there any positives you've seen so far in terms of the payroll landscape and in terms of people actually using AI in a positive way?
They're starting to cut, their stories are starting to come out, or case studies are starting to come out on how AI is being positively used. I still think it's just really early days, but I think a lot of us don't realise how long we have been using AI, like Alexa and all of your gadgets at home. They're all AI built. We've got situations where payslips have been able to be explained to employees without having to speak to the payroll department. So again, that's more time for the payroll team. So I think it's early days. The chatbots are a bonus, but there are some larger organisations that have the budget behind them that are using AI in a different way and are seeing positive effects from that. So I think if we had this discussion in a year's time, then I reckon there will be a lot more case studies of how AI has improved and how it has been positive.
Actually, I want to ask Julie this question as well, because obviously, Julie, you speak to clients of ours. So what's the kind of vibe from what the people that we speak to or companies that we work with? What's their kind of approach towards AI? Are you having many of these conversations, or is this not really a thing? Is it more that businesses are looking at it and going, well, because obviously they're working with Lace and we're saying to them, have you looked at your operating model? What are your processes in place? It's all very well looking at the shiny, sexy, like tech and AI side, but what about those other fundamentals? What are we seeing from a client side?
I think we're seeing clients that still need to focus on technology. They need to still focus on the 7 pillars, right, that we just discussed, and actually get your foundations right before you can even think about the next level, and to me, which is AI. So if you don't have the right technology, if you're using antiquated systems, if your data is not 100% accurate, there's no point using AI. So just get everything right first. It doesn't really come up in discussions because I guess some of the people that we speak to are still focusing on just getting their foundations absolutely perfect. And the other side of it as well is that actually the way payroll is changing, right? Like you were saying, Mel, about compliance is changing all the time, legislation is changing all the time. Just keeping on top of that alone is enough to keep payroll teams busy, as well as possibly having a new system or looking at new ways of working, etc. So I don't know if it's maybe as adopted as in other functions within businesses.
There's a stat in the white paper, because I want to move us on a little bit to talk about skills, because actually I think this is quite an interesting topic. We've done quite a lot of work talking about skills for the future, how businesses are evolving. We've just been talking about AI, and just before we went live, obviously we were having a chat about how the way in which people interact and the way in which they use AI within their jobs, it's fundamentally changing the way in which work is done. So Matt, I wanted to get your take on that skills pillar. I'm going to hit you with the stat, and I just wanted to get your kind of view on it. So we researched via our payroll community. We did a poll to our payroll community about, do they need to be spending more time on developing skills, and should there be greater investment in the support of payroll teams to enhance their skills and capabilities? 85% of organizations said they needed to do more in the investment and development of support of payroll to enhance effectiveness and the capabilities of their people. What's your kind of view on where payroll leaders are at based on the conversations that you have when we talk about this skills debate? Is this a big thing that they're worried about, my next generation of talent coming through?
Yeah, there's 2 answers there, I think. So on the skill side, the leaders that we speak to are really keen to get their team upskilled. I think sometimes the problem can be actually getting the team to want to be upskilled as well. We all know payroll is pressurized. There's a lot of pressure and time constraints, and it's actually being able to fit in a training course or being able to upskill. So giving them that availability to do that. And we do speak to some leaders who put time out in everyone's diary to ensure that they do upskill. Everyone around the world, every payroll leader, or actually anybody in payroll that I speak, and I would say in every country I've ever visited, everyone's worried about where do we get the new people into the payroll industry. So it doesn't matter if you're in India, America, UK, France, wherever, everyone is concerned about that. And I think that comes down to people not understanding what payroll does, and that payroll is actually an industry and it's a career, and it's a pretty decent job, I would say, working in payroll. And that could be a whole podcast on itself. How do we get the people into the payroll industry? So I think there's two answers there.
Yeah, Julie, I don't want to keep you out of this because I'm interested to get your take on that skills debate and companies that we speak to and the challenges that they're facing. I'll give another stat as well, which I think is interesting. Feel free to riff off of this as well. 78% of organizations that we spoke to thought that their payroll challenges are primarily driven by a lack of coordination across different departments. And I think that's an interesting one, both for the skills debate, because you've got the internal mobility, because I'm sure there are skills that exist within other functions, within organizations that can then be transferable to within the payroll team as an opportunity to then drive more awareness and stuff. But what are we seeing from a LACE perspective, Julie?
I think that there is a concern about skills and skill shortages, and payroll isn't sexy, or maybe not as sexy as we'd like it to be. And it's that whole HR is always seen as a bit more glamorous, isn't it? And it's a great career to get into. But we need to change it. And I think by adapting, which I just think payrollers are completely adaptive people because of just the nature of the work and actually just the nature of the industry and how quickly changes come about. If you think of the huge changes we've had in the last 10, 15 years, RTI and auto enrollment, and everyone has just had to get on board with the changes, whether you like it or not, you have to get on board. And the same will happen with, if you're just thinking about AI that we were just discussing, people will get on board with it and they will adapt how they've previously done something, but we have to make sure we're not losing the human touch. We're not losing that personal element that is so important in payroll. People want a person to speak to, maybe really have a discussion about their wages or about something that is just a bit more specific than speaking to a chatbot. So we need the skills that are there already and we need to build on them.
Mel, I want to get your view on that because I saw you have a little wry smile there when I talked about the issues between departments and lack of coordination and communication. Like, whose fault is that? Oh, that sounds quite a blunt statement. Is that entirely payroll? Is it entirely other departments? Is it a little bit of both?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think I've come across some people that have run quarterly workshops for all of the departments within their organisation, that everyone understood what the responsibility was for payroll and what would happen if they didn't work with payroll to get things delivered. And we all know how important it is for the employee experience and how expensive it is to keep employees, to train them, to recruit them. And there are statistics that if you pay an employee incorrectly twice, then they will start looking for another job. I want to say that I think people, because they don't understand payroll, other departments don't understand how important it actually is to communicate to payroll, to let them know when there's a starter, leaver or whatever. It is a bit of both. I think payroll needs to communicate, network with other departments, but I can understand the frustration for payroll when they don't get the data that they need. And because people don't understand payroll, they don't deliver what they should do. So I think it's a hand-in-hand answer to that. But that is one of the biggest frustrations, I think.
I think just adding to that as well, Mel, I found in my career that payroll quite often gets blamed for everything because everything ends with payroll. So the information is typically fed from the people team, the HR team, and then it's fed from payroll to finance. And if those reports are not in the right format for finance, and it might be that payroll are just using the tools that they have in front of them. They don't have really sophisticated reporting, for instance, they've had to manually do it. But I think there can quite be like a negative connotation of payroll sometimes, and then sometimes that can create a barrier within businesses. So it's about, like you say, an appreciation and an understanding of what payroll do as well.
Maybe they should just go on strike for 1 week. And
imagine just around payday.
What payroll do. So it's one of the biggest things. That's why everyone goes to work, isn't it, to get paid? So it is in theory the most important department in any business. But I think we just need to shout out a little bit more, get out of the comfort zone, and this is what payroll does, and this is why you need to be friends with us. This is why you need to give us the information when we ask. And also the other thing is, when things do go wrong, I think payroll will just get on with it because they have to, because they're on a deadline. And I think sometimes, I don't know how that could happen, but that's when communication needs to come out to the other departments of, do you understand what's just happened?
And you know what? There's a really interesting stat in the report, actually, which I'll read out again. 57% of organizations do not believe that their business has a clear understanding of what constitutes payroll data, what it encompasses, and how it should be handled. That sounds to me, from the conversation we've just had, that wouldn't surprise either of you guys. But actually, I would have thought that it would be even lower. based on conversations that we're having and conversations that I've heard between the payroll team and some of the challenges that payroll people are thinking. So I'll start with you, Mel, and then Julie, jump in afterwards. What's your take on that? 57%, so just over half of the organizations that we surveyed said that the business doesn't have a clear understanding of what payroll data is. From what you're telling me, or from what you guys are saying, I feel like that should be even lower, like even fewer businesses understand what payroll data is. What do you think about that, Mel?
So I agree that maybe that should be lower. I think one of the things that's been really positive over the last few years is that you're coming across payroll leaders who are making a conscious effort of trying to network with other leaders within the business to understand what payroll does. So I think if you did that 5 or 6 years ago, it would be totally different. Let's talk about it in a positive way. I do think there are more leaders out there trying to promote payroll internally. We had a really good session at one of our summits where one of our members did a presentation on the KPIs that they report to their business leaders. And it was so well received that people that were not connected to payroll, hey, could you help us build something for us? And so I think there is more of that happening now, where we wouldn't have had that discussion 5, 7, 10 years ago. So hopefully it will get even better as time goes on. But even when you talk to people in the street, I would say, and people will say, what do you do? And I say, I work in the payroll industry. People don't have a clue.
There's a branding thing there, isn't there, Julie?
Yeah,
and we talk about the mindset as well as part of this, one of our pillars. And that's a really good example, Mel, that you've just given of that payroll leader example that you gave there. That's somebody with that mindset that I want to share, but also I want to champion internally within my business as well. So we've got a couple of minutes left. Julie, kind of any thoughts around the data side of that mindset piece?
Yeah, the mindset piece, I think, it's shifting. And I think sometimes there might have been like a wrong impression of payroll where payroll teams are not approachable, they're not maybe friendly. And actually that might come down to actually the pressure that payroll is under. There is no time for downtime. You have to sometimes in organizations book your holiday around payroll deadlines. It's such a deadline driven function that actually if someone comes and disturbs you or puts a meeting in your diary, it's just not possible, because what's your option? Not pay people or have a meeting. So I think in the past, and it's certainly shifting for sure, payroll people have maybe not been seen as collaborative or as part of the wider function or having that place in C-suite you were saying earlier, Mel. So yeah, it is changing, but I think there's a bit more work to do.
We've had a few of these conversations over the years. I think there is still work to do, and there's work to be done by supporting organisations like the GPA, or you've got CIPP and things like that, who are trying to champion the industry and trying to raise its profile. One final question, which I'm going to pop to you, Mel, but then also, Julie, you can have a free swim at it as well. If we're having this podcast in 12 months' time, what's your kind of aspirations for where the industry is at and what's changed?
12 months. I feel like 12 months is a blink of an eye, really, isn't it? I feel like we just said earlier about maybe having some more case studies on the AI side to actually understand how people are actually using it. I think that would be really good, rather than just talking about it, because I feel like there's a lot of talk and not enough of proof and what we've seen. From a selfish point of view, the GPA is trying to do some things where we're trying to get people into the industry. So hopefully we'll start helping with the promotion of payroll with people that aren't payroll people. So maybe 12 or 18 months we'll start getting there where people who aren't in payroll will have heard payroll and understand what it is. But I don't know if that actually answers your question. I think it's a hard one for 12 months.
I really liked what you just said there. We need people to say, this is what I've done. And as a community, we're sharing that knowledge, because then it can be better as us as an industry, if you like. And then the other part of it, I like the idea of, I think it boils down to that skills piece, which is how do we identify the types of skills that are needed for future payrollers? What does that look like? And it doesn't always need to be a certain route that they've gone through. What transferable skills from other types of business functions could be used, and how do you champion people thinking, I want to go and work in that payroll function? Julie, I'm going to let you have the last word on that. Thoughts on 12, or given that Mel said it's blink of an eye, we can go 18 months or 2 years. If we're doing this podcast in 2 years' time, what would you like to see?
So I would love to see AI like really moving on in terms of adoption, I should say. And I would love to see the mindset shift that we just discussed. I would love to see lots of senior leaders at C-suite level and just payroll having a seat at the table. The other thing is, and we had a LACE event recently where we were discussing how do we get people into payroll. And Mel, you've probably heard this loads of times where, including myself, loads of people would say they fell into payroll. It wasn't something they aspired to do when they were 14. And actually it's going into schools, it's targeting and colleges and actually making it a great career from the start, rather than something that when people don't know what they want to do and end up enjoying it, they fall into. It's like making it a defined career that is attractive, that has a great progression within it, and that people are proud to work in payroll.
Yeah, I think that's a really fantastic bookend to today's podcast. We've run out of time. Before I say my thank yous, Mel, should we just do one more where people can find out a little bit more about the Global Payroll Association, but also some of the different tools that you guys have to help to champion the industry?
Yeah, you can find us at gpa.net. If you're based in Australia, we have a program for people who don't know anything about payroll, where they can learn about payroll for free. So just super quick on that, 70% of 200 kids that went through the program said they would consider payroll as a career. So Julie, if we do what you say, then it will really start to work. But we have loads of tools, hopefully, to help people out, training, membership, but it's all on gpa.net. So thank you for the shout out for that.
Yeah, no worries. And thank you very much for joining us today. It's been great to have you on, Mel.
Thank you. It's been really good.
And Julie, as my partner in crime, thank you very much for helping me ask some of the questions.
Thanks, Chris. Loved it.
It's been great to have you both on. We'll certainly get both of you on again in future. Hopefully you've enjoyed this podcast as much as we've enjoyed recording it. If you want to find out a little bit more about our other podcasts, if you want to find out more about the white paper, as I said right at the top of the show, just need to go to Lace Partners website. It's www.lacepartners.com. You can go to the payroll services page, or you can go to the insights page, and there's a tab that you can actually click on for specific payroll content. So that's blogs, that's podcasts, that's webinars, that's white papers, and all of that lovely stuff. But for now, thank you very much for listening. And from myself, from Mel, and from Julie, hopefully we'll catch you next time on the HR on the Offensive podcast. Bye-bye.